once you've kind of started this momentum, I think it's impossible to stop. So I think Keir Starmer is now finished. It's just a question of when does he decide to pack it in.
Joining me are two people who promise they're not plotting to replace me, although they would say that, and they are the Times columnist Seb Payne. Hello, Seb.
Hello, Hugo. How are you?
What do you care?
I'm just trying to
Very
be nice,
suspicious.
okay? I won't bother in the future.
And also the incoming TV critic for the Sunday Times, Charlotte Ivers.
Yeah, so I'm not quite replacing you, am I? But I'm sort of taking a similar job to the job you had a while ago, a bit later. I think we can maybe call this a coup.
That works. I mean, you're doing Sunday, I did Saturday.
Yeah.
It is the best job, I think, in written print journalism is being a Saturday TV critic. It's a lovely job. I hope you really
Why
like it.
Saturday rather than Sunday? What's so much better about Saturday?
Weekend.
Weekend, yeah.
I always forget there's a paper on Sundays as well. Just you've got so much space. You can watch what you like. You can really get into it. It's a lovely, lovely gig.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been sort of preparing like Rocky. You know, what do I need to do? So I've been watching all the things that I've missed, and that mainly consists of sort of 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'll be sitting there in my pajamas watching The Sopranos and going, yeah, this is a good job, isn't it? I like this.
Hard life, Charlotte, isn't it?
I mean, the bad weeks, I remember my worst week as a TV critic was when a new series it was the last series of House of Cards dropped in its entirety, and I had to review it because it was the end of House of Cards, but I'd sort of failed to watch the previous maybe 4 series, so it was like cramming all of them into a Monday. It was just you sort of suddenly losing your mind, wondering how many of them you can watch on a high speed.
My main opinion of House of Cards, the US one, is it is just too long, which I imagine you shared by the end of that day watching all of it in 1 week.
That was quite a week, and like all for 600 words at the end of it. Very odd. Anyway, I hope you love it. I'm sure you will. Let's talk about some actual news. Keir Starmer's position as Prime Minister looks more vulnerable than ever. Tim Allen has now quit as Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, saying, "I've decided to stand down to allow a new number 10 team to be built. I wish the PM and his team every success." He only lasted 6 months. He was brought in during the last PM reset in September 2025, which wasn't that long ago. If you reset that often, as has been discussed, there's probably a problem with your boot loop. Seb, Tim Allen was close to Peter Mandelson. So is Jonathan Powell. He's still there. Morgan McSweeney's just gone. What a mess.
Yeah, it's not great, is it? And it feels as if that we are in what that you could call the death zone for prime ministers. So Theresa May was there in 2019, Boris Johnson was there in 2022, John Major was there in 1995, I think. And once you're in that zone, it's incredibly hard to get out. There's only really 2 ways to do it. One is unbelievable political skill and guile, and the other is some kind of international conflict. See the Falklands War and Margaret Thatcher. I don't think Keir Starmer has any guile or political skill, as we've seen over the past couple of weeks. So I just don't think you can bottle all this up again. You know, this idea about number 10 collapsing around him, all the MPs plotting leadership bids, all the discussion about who is saying what, who's having a pint in the pub and getting their hair done. Once you've kind of started this momentum, I think it's impossible to stop. So I think Keir Starmer is now finished. It's just a question of when does he decide to pack it in this week? Is it going to be when the Mandelson files are eventually released and we see all those text messages between Peter Mandelson and everyone in number 10 and everyone else in the government? Is it the Gorton and Denton by-election in 2 weeks' time when Labour could well lose that? Or is it May? So I think it's very hard now to see how Keir Starmer really gets beyond the middle of this year. But it's one of those things. I remember at the end of Boris Johnson's era, which I wrote a book about, available in all good shops of the works for 50p at the moment. But I do remember at that era, it was kind of, oh, Boris, he defies the laws of political gravity, he's the Teflon politician. But you always get to a point when the laws do kick in, and it feels like the laws of political gravity are kicking in for Keir Starmer now, and we'll see more people go. It could well be Jonathan Powell goes as well. There's going to be huge pressure on him. He's the national security advisor, but he was the guy who I think, according to people I've heard from, was really pushing the Mandelson appointment. So now that Morgan has gone and now that Tim Allen has gone, it's going to be all eyes on him. But again, it all comes back to who made the ultimate call, and that is the Prime Minister.
Well, I mean, if it is going to be a military conflict that saves him, it's going to have to be a pretty minor nation these days to attack us that we can be confident of victory. So looking at you, Tuvalu, or perhaps Luxembourg. Charlotte, this isn't just like an HR issue, all the people leaving, although that is obviously bad enough. If you look at the people who are leaving, if you look at the people who are causing the problem, this is a pretty direct link back to Tony Blair's number 10. This is the Blairist what some people might call the Blairist heart of the Starmer project.
It really is. And if you think about the people around Tony Blair, it's not like they looked at Keir Starmer on day one and thought, fantastic, this is the heir to Blair. He's got the charm. He's got the centrist politics. They sort of looked at him and went, that'll do. That is as close as we're going to get. We've just had Jeremy Corbyn and we did not like that. So we can basically get this bloke up and sort of drag him out in front of an audience and get Labour back into power, and maybe we can influence him a bit from there. Starmer would never, I think, consider himself a Blairite, and the Blairites have always held him in mild suspicion because of what they perceive as his lack of ideology, really, which is a criticism he gets from the left and from everyone else as well. So you've always had this group of people who don't quite think like Starmer, but are very powerful behind the scenes. And this is the problem that people always highlight with him. Does he have any thoughts of his own, or is he just a puppet for various different people's whims? And Seb suddenly looks excited about
it. I love it when Seb starts twitching.
Seb I said, does Keir Starmer have any ideas? And Seb sort of breathed in like, yes, he does have ideas.
He's like a dog who's just seen a treat. Yes. Seb, go.
Oh, God, now I've got to say what I was going to say. My point I was going to make, Charlotte is completely correct in this sense that what they tried to do was to outsource their ideas, and Morgan McSweeney came up with this kind of mix of what's called blue and new, which is to take some of the kind of pragmatic, technocratic elements of the New Labour era with the people of that era, with the kind of blue Labour communitarian project, see, the Morris Glassman, Shabana Mahmood kind of thing. But again, all you've got is this kind of empty vessel who is the Prime Minister at the moment, or the driver there at the front of the DLR train, as our colleague Patrick Maguire famously described in his book. And the problem is the outsourcing of the Blair thing has kind of just come to an end now. And the Blue Labour thing, I just don't see the centre of gravity for that. So I think what we are going to see is a kind of soft left takeover now, if Keir Starmer survives.
Well, look, the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, has been speaking in the last few moments. Let's have a listen to her.
The Prime Minister is the architect of his own misfortunes, and all of the chaos and instability we're seeing is completely self-inflicted. This is a Labour psychodrama right now. We're all living in Labour's psychodrama. I'm standing here in a pub that has been struggling with many of the terrible decisions that Labour has made, and they want to talk about their issues. They want to see a government getting a grip. Right now we have a government that's focusing purely on its own internal psychodrama. Enough of that. It is time for them to get a grip and start governing the country.
I mean, I don't know, this isn't fundamentally a Tory issue, but it is uncomfortable for Tories to be talking about ending the psychodrama, isn't it, Seb?
I mean, if you take that clip there and add a slightly more nasal twang to it, those words could have come out the words of Keir Starmer back in 2022, word for word what Kemi Badenoch has just said. And of course, lest us forget, Keir Starmer became Prime Minister to tread on our lives a bit more lightly and to get politics out of our lives. I think Kemi's had a pretty good week. I mean, PMQs was good last week. I think her performance was good there. And the fact they laid this humble address, which is going to lead to the release of these Mandelson files, that could be what drove the Tim Allen and Morgan McSweeney to quit. Ultimately, though, yes, there is still this issue, as you pointed out, Hugo. The Tories went through one or two directors of communications and chiefs of staff. I mean, if you could remember all of them under the Johnson era, then have a coconut, because I certainly couldn't remember them all in that period. So, there is, of course, everyone making this wider question about, is Britain governed more? Does Downing Street work? Does the position itself work? But I think in this instance, it's actually just a big political misjudgment by Keir Starmer, of which other Tory Prime Ministers made as well.
Look, we're going to talk about the sort of various leadership machinations in a minute. Before we do, though, Charlotte, I suppose one could, if one was to be extremely sort of optimistic and forward-looking about this, one could almost make an argument like, this is the point where we begin to see Starmerism. This is where he's got rid of all these people who are trying to shape him and steer him and exploit him, and he's like, no, I've got nothing left to lose, now I do exactly what I want. The problem there is, what does he want?
Well, what does he want? And also, suppose he did suddenly wake up with this great spark of life, he would need to get these things that he wants, and you and I can't really say what they are, through Parliament. And I think if he couldn't command the respect of his MPs and the respect of Parliament 18 months or so ago, when things really started going downhill for him, can he now? Not really at all. He's sort of, as Seb was saying, got this general sense that it's over for him, sitting duck, whatever you want to call him now. I don't think a new great Starmerite agenda brought in tomorrow could save him. I mean, what could save him is if he does manage to incorporate the soft left into his Downing Street, he becomes a cipher for a different arm of his party, because we know a lot of his MPs are a lot more comfortable with more soft left policies, so he might be able to get those through Parliament. this would rely on people on the soft left wanting him rather than thinking, actually, we'd be better with someone who truly believes what it is that we're going to try and implement.
But I was the issue with that, though, of course, going back to Ed Miliband's 35% strategy, which went down very well at the 2015 election campaign. But there's no mandate for this kind of stuff, that if they do tack towards the soft left, then you're going to start getting into the drumbeat of saying there's no mandate for this, you're going to raise taxes, borrow more, etc. And then, of course, everyone will be uttering the favourite words, which is general election.